State of the franchise for the Denver Broncos. The Broncos this past season went 7-10. They missed out on the playoffs, forcing them to part ways with former head coach Vic Fangio. They bring in Packers offensive coordinator Nathaniel Hackett to be their new head coach. Now, some Broncos fans out there think that this hiring was a move to help increase the Denver Broncos' chances of landing Packers quarterback Aaron Rodgers in a trade. Now, I'm not going to rule out that theory. However, I'm not going to fully back that theory. I'm just going to have a wait and see approach. And the reason why I'm like this with the wait and see approach when it comes to Aaron Rodgers is because I'm not really sure that Green Bay would be willing to trade Aaron Rodgers. As a matter of fact, I think Green Bay would be more willing to allow Aaron Rodgers to retire than they would to trade him to another team and let him play elsewhere. And I know Broncos fans are going to be like, well, JT, that kind of thinking is dumb. Like, why would the Green Bay Packers turn down all the potential assets that they could get in return for Aaron Rodgers just to allow him to walk away from the game for nothing when you can end up getting rid of him and getting something in return, which I understand that. But some franchises are kind of stubborn. Some franchises feel like, some players are worth letting walk away for nothing and retiring versus letting them get traded to another team and then potentially stab you in the back. Now, I personally, if Aaron Rodgers wanted out, I would trade him and get that asset back because Mike Tomlin has a quote that he likes to say. He says that we want volunteers, not hostages. So if Aaron Rodgers wants out of Green Bay, I don't really understand why you wouldn't trade him and try to get everything in return that you can for him. However, I don't want to spend this whole entire segment speculating on Aaron Rodgers to Green Bay. Well, Aaron Rodgers leaving Green Bay and getting traded to Denver because that's just all speculation. So let's talk about some more realistic possibilities out there about what Denver is going to do to attack the quarterback position. So Denver currently has $40 million in some change in cap space. Now, the best quarterback that is going to be available in free agency this year is going to most likely be Jameis Winston off the top of my head. Now, Jameis Winston is coming off a season-ending injury where he has like an ACL tear. He also tore something else. I think it was his MCL. Don't quote me on that. So you don't really know where Jameis Winston is going to be in terms of his recovery per se. Like, how close is he going to be from being able to start week one? You don't really know. Like, yeah, the doctors are going to give you, an estimated or a predicted time frame, but you don't really know if Jameis Winston is going to be ready around that time because we've seen several instances where players were supposed to be back and they weren't back because they weren't fully 100% healed. So if I'm Denver, do you look at a potential trade for a Deshaun Watson? Would Deshaun Watson be willing to be traded to the Denver Broncos? Because that's something that not a lot of people realize is that Deshaun Watson has say in whichever team he gets traded to. He's just not going to get traded to a team that he doesn't want to play for. So is he willing to play for Denver? I think that Deshaun Watson probably will be willing to play with Denver. They got a pretty good group of wide receivers. You got Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler. Their wide receiving core is really good. You got Noah Fant, one of the better tight ends in the league. The offensive line is pretty solid. So definitely a lot of weapons for Deshaun Watson to be successful. And really, that's any quarterback. Like, any quarterback that is going to Denver is going to have a really good team around them. The defense is pretty solid, even though they do need to work on cornerback. But overall, the Broncos are probably a quarterback away from not only being a playoff contender, but probably a Super Bowl contender, which is why the hiring of Nathaniel Hackett is really important because he's been with Aaron Rodgers And when you're with a great quarterback is able to make the guy who is calling the plays look like a genius. So what's going to happen if you're not able to land a superstar quarterback like a Deshaun Watson or Aaron Rodgers? What's going to happen? Are you going to sign Jameis Winston for agency? Could you bring back Teddy Bridgewater potentially? Or are you going to opt to draft a quarterback in the upcoming 2022 NFL draft? You're going to have the choice of probably the top signal callers in the draft. You're going to have the option at being able to draft almost any quarterback, because a lot of defensive players and offensive tackles are expected to be flying off the board with the first couple of picks. So for Denver, you could be in a prime spot to maybe get a Kenny Pickett or Matt Corral or Sam Howell or Malik Willis, whichever quarterback Nathaniel Hackett and the front office of Denver are in love with. They're going to have a good shot at getting any of them that they like. And with Nathaniel Hackett being an offensive-minded coach, that's what you want when you have a young rookie quarterback. You want to have an offensive-minded coach that can kind of groom them, give them some tidbits there, and spend a lot of time with them, getting him prepped and ready. However, they have other needs outside of quarterback. What's going on with cornerback? Because Bryce Callahan and Kyle Fuller are both slated to be free agents, pending if Denver gives any one of those guys new contracts. So you're going to have to get another corner, which there are a lot of great corners coming out in the 2022 draft class. So you can get another really good corner to pair alongside of Patrick Surtain, who had a phenomenal rookie season this past year. So overall, I look at the state of the franchise for the Denver Broncos, like, it's a lot of optimism, because Broncos fans understand that their team is only a couple of pieces away from being a legitimate threat in the AFC. And even this year, like with Vic Fangio at the helm as head coach, like, Denver was all the way in the playoff race until the final 2 weeks of the regular season. But they kind of exceeded my expectations a little bit, because Denver was around 5 to 6 wins. They ended up exceeding that with 7. So you look at Denver, if Nathaniel Hackett can find some consistent quarterback play. And when the Broncos were at their best this past season, it's when they had a little bit of offense. When their offense was able to get a little bit of momentum going, it helped out the defense, because then the defense wasn't on the field for as many plays as they would be if the offense was struggling. So when the offense isn't struggling and they're able to sustain drives and move the football effectively, this is a really solid football team. So imagine what they could do if they got a legitimate quarterback, which is why you're going to be hearing Denver connected to a lot of quarterbacks this offseason. Like, every quarterback that is going to be in trade talks or could be in free agency, Denver is going to be connected to. And also, if Denver can get another top-tier corner to pair up alongside of Patrick Surtain, this defense is going to be even better than what it was last season, because, like, the defensive line is pretty good. Linebacker, it can go either way, but even without Vic Fangio, the defense still should be pretty good. The defensive coordinator that is expected to be hired, it has a pretty good track record. So it's easy to be optimistic about Denver, because 7-10 isn't bad. That puts you around middle of the pack. That means you weren't a great team, you weren't a bad team. 7-10 means you were a fringe playoff team. Maybe you were a couple of players away from getting in, or maybe you just had a couple of games that came down to the wire that the ball didn't really bounce in your direction. So Broncos fans do have a reason to be optimistic. However, I really feel like the optimism of Denver Broncos fans and how good they feel this team is going to be next season is heavily going to rely on what Denver does at the quarterback position. Because if Denver has to bring back Teddy Bridgewater, don't really know how confident Broncos fans are going to be in him. Then, what if you can't get a quarterback? What if you can't get a Jimmy G or whatnot? What if you don't want to draft a quarterback? What happens then? What if you have to start Drew Lock? Those are some questions out there that have to be asked. But you guys, let me know the state of the franchise for the Denver Broncos. Also, make sure that you guys check out the JT Sports Podcast. Every video that's uploaded on the channel is available in audio format on every single podcasting platform.